Welcome to Virtual Meditation with Shiloh.
Hello?
Today we're working on forgiving ourselves for not knowing the difference between upload and download speeds before getting cable internet.
That's oddly specific.
Repeat after me. I am not my cable internet.
Wait, I don't have cable.
I'm not a bad if my video calls, more like video stalls.
Hey Shiloh, there's something...
I will get AT&T fiber.
And I will switch classes until you do.
Slow upload speeds? You're not a bad person. You just need better internet. With 20 times faster upload speeds, AT&T Fiber delivers a faster internet experience than cable. Get AT&T Fiber with no annual contract. Limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT. Check eligibility at att.com/getfiber based on combined internet 1000 wired up and download capacity versus major cable providers 1 gig service with uploads of 35 megabits per second. Speeds vary, not guaranteed. Restrictions apply.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. We have a battle between Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. No, I don't mean the terrorist organizations, folks. That would be for a different podcast. What I mean is, we have Les Wexner and Alan Dershowitz suiting up and preparing for battle against one another. And since the beginning of this, I have said here on this podcast, and most assuredly in the backyard talking to my friends and my family, that these people will eventually turn on each other. Because there is no honor amongst thieves, and certainly no honor amongst human traffickers. So we're seeing it begin. We're seeing the very beginning stages of these people turning on each other. And it will not be long before the turning on each other becomes the ratting on each other. Because it's all about self-preservation. These people only care about themselves. They are narcissistic, they are full of hubris, and their egos are so large that nobody else matters to them. And if you think somebody like Alan Dershowitz is going to go down alone for something like this, or go down without bringing others down with him, then you have not been paying attention to the plot. Alan Dershowitz, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel, and the rest of them are all about self-preservation. And it will not be long before there are other arrests, and once those people are in custody, I'm looking at you, the Core 4, the ratting will begin at an epic pace. If we have the sort of agents that we send in against the mafia, or against El Chapo, or against insert criminal here, and they're able to get them to roll over on their friends, they're able to get them to plea down and rat on other members of their other associates in their criminal families. Do you really think that these pampered ass, baloney smelling members of so-called polite society are going to be able to withstand the pressure brought upon them? Absolutely not. And we're seeing it already without arrests being made. We're seeing them throw each other under the bus. We're seeing Dershowitz attack Les Wexner. And folks, from where I'm sitting, it is like the Taliban having a fight with Al-Qaeda. Oh, I'm not rooting for either side. I just want ultimate carnage to occur to both parties. And that's what I hope happens here. I hope they both come out of this looking and smelling like shit. Because at the end of the day, both of these men have been credibly accused and fingered by Virginia Roberts as partaking in the abuse. Not just enabling, not just being the well-intentioned lawyer who is upholding the Constitution. No. Partaking in the abuse. The both of them. So watching them have this fight, watching them have this little quarrel between each other, I am taking great joy in it, folks. And our article today happens to have that as its topic. Our article today is from Law and Crime. The headline: Jeffrey Epstein's former client accused Alan Dershowitz of staging collateral attack on accuser's credibility. The author of this article, Colin Kalmbacher. So what they're saying here is the Wexner team is saying that Dershowitz is staging another attack on Virginia Roberts, and he's trying to use Wexner as a proxy. That's basically what his law team is saying here in that headline. And boy, that's explosive stuff. That is super explosive stuff. And it's going to come back and it's going to bite Alan, I kept my underpants on, Dershowitz, right in his tighty-whitey covered ass. Former Victoria's Secret CEO Leslie Wexner is apparently not interested in helping Alan Dershowitz in the latter's ongoing defamation lawsuit against Virginia Roberts. Yeah, why would he? Why would Wexner want any more light brought into this? Why would Wexner want his name involved in this any more than it has to be? Because his time's coming, folks. His time to be in the spotlight is most assuredly coming. If you think that he's wiggling off of this hook, you're wrong. On Monday, Senior U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska ordered the unsealing of several documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein affair. Those documents are part of Dershowitz's still ongoing case against Roberts, which is a separate legal matter from the long-settled defamation case filed by Roberts against alleged Epstein accomplice, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scumbag, Ghislaine Maxwell. And you see the progression of Alan Dershowitz's slide into being unhinged as these documents are being unsealed, or the judge is giving the okay to unseal them. Dirty Dersh is becoming more and more off the handle. His posts are crazy. His Doc Brown hair is crazy. He's not making any sense. He's not being logical. And he continues to attempt to demean the survivors, which is the worst strategy of all time. Look, I've said it numerous times. If I was accused of these crimes, I would vigorously defend myself. I would leave no stone unturned. The first step would be, I would go willingly to the FBI and sit down under oath and have a conversation with them about what I know. I most certainly would not attack the survivors the way he has. That is not a winning strategy, and you would expect better from such a high-profile attorney, a high-profile Harvard graduate. You would think that he would have enough sense to use the proper method of defense here. But he hasn't, and you can tell that he understands the stakes, and that is why he is going for scorched earth. But we see you, Mr. Dershowitz. We understand what you're doing, and we all know that you do not have the high ground here. You do not have the defense, the kind of position that can be defended. So you lash out. You attempt to move the goalposts, and you attempt to bring Wexner in to try and take a little bit of the load from your shoulders. Well, don't worry, Mr. Dershowitz. Wexner's time is coming. But for now, you, my friend, are directly in the crosshairs. The two controversies, while legally several dockets apart, are closely related in terms of at least some of the underlying facts. Roberts sued Dershowitz for defamation in early 2019. Dershowitz countersued Roberts for defamation in late 2019. And again, this is the kind of thing that Alan Dershowitz does. You would think a guy that has attained the level of success that Dershowitz has would be comfortable going back to his house in Martha's Vineyard, playing his naked volleyball, being a voyeur, spying on some of his neighbors, and living whatever kind of life an old coot like him lives. But instead, He thinks that he is going to be able to control this narrative. He thinks that he's going to be able to shift the narrative to any place he wants it to be shifted, because that's exactly what has happened in the past. Well, you're not up against the legacy media anymore, Mr. Dershowitz. You're not up against people that you're friendly with anymore, Mr. Dershowitz. Now you must answer directly to the people of the United States and the people of the world, because citizen journalists are not going to let you off the hook. None of us are. So just get ready. Get ready for the battle of your life. Get ready to face the consequences of your actions. Dershowitz has attempted to obtain the entirety of the massive tranche of secret Epstein files in the settled Roberts-Maxwell lawsuit, but has thus far proven unsuccessful, despite making several formal requests to access those controversial documents in full. And we know Preska has already told him to pound sand numerous times. But this guy just keeps coming, keeps throwing shit at the wall, hoping some of it sticks. An absolute clown. This is the problem with people like Dershowitz. They're so used to everything going their way that if something goes off the rails and it doesn't land in their favor, then all of a sudden it becomes the scorched earth policy, and everybody's a dirtbag, everybody is a liar, everybody's a prostitute, when in reality, the real person with a problem, sir, is you. Another avenue Dershowitz has pursued in his defamation case against Roberts is by attempting to subpoena Les Wexner and Wexner's family attorney John Ziegler for documents and to sit for depositions. And remember, Alan Dershowitz claims that all of this is some big scheme to try and extort money from Les Wexner. He's been on record saying that. Virginia Roberts is trying to extort money from Les Wexner. Zero evidence of that. We've never seen any evidence of that. None of it. And, in fact, Wexner has come out and said that is not the case. So again, Mr. Dershowitz, stop BSing everybody. Be a man and go to the FBI on your own and sit down under oath and answer their questions. If you're innocent, what's the big deal? Wexner has long been adjacent to Epstein's alleged global elite sex trafficking empire due to Epstein's years-long work as Wexner's financial advisor. Artist Maria Farmer also told law enforcement that she was sexually assaulted by Epstein and Maxwell while serving as Wexner's artist in residence in 1996. Facts. Maria has been very clear about what occurred on that farm. Maria has been very clear about Wexner, his wife, and the head of their security, Randy Bowie. Don't think I've forgotten you, Mr. Randy Bowie. Do not think I have forgotten you. You, my friend, most certainly are still in the conversation, and you will have your time as well. Nearly 2 years after Epstein was charged in Florida, Wexner officially cut ties with his one-time financial guru. Over a decade later, Wexner alleged that Epstein had misappropriated vast sums of money from him and his estate. Sorry, I don't buy it. That's a lie. Who waits years and years to report that $47 million has been embezzled or extorted or laundered? He didn't report it because he didn't want an investigation into his finances, obviously. We all know that Mr. Wexner was the bag man for Jeffrey Epstein, and we all know Jeffrey Epstein was up to his ears in money laundering. So, Mr. Wexner, don't think your time isn't coming, sir, because it most certainly is. Not only have you been directly implicated, but you most certainly were involved with the financial aspect of this criminal enterprise. Dershowitz seems to believe that Wexner can shed some favorable light on his extortion claims against Roberts. But a series of letters authored by Wexner's attorney, Marion H. Little, seem to foreclose against such a role. One letter addressed to Preska begins, "We are writing in response to defendant Dershowitz's correspondence of July 23, 2020. The discovery disputes generally fall into two categories. The first is the manner by which confidential documents and testimony should be produced. We submit discovery should be conducted subject to a protective order. The second relates to the scope of discovery and specifically whether defendant adopting the maxim falsus in uno falsus in omnibus should be permitted to impose an uneasy burden upon Mr. Wexner and many others for purposes of staging a collateral attack on the credibility of Miss Roberts with extrinsic evidence. We submit there is no basis for compelling Mr. Wexner's deposition. Wow. That's explosive, folks. That's basically saying, in layman's terms, you're a liar, Mr. Dershowitz, and Mr. Wexner has no information to provide you for you to try and harpoon Virginia Roberts with, okay? The Latin employed above translates to false in one thing, false in everything, and is another way of Wexner saying that Dershowitz's demands for testimony are premised on falsehoods. Specifically, Little is arguing that Dershowitz has brought an immaterial and incorrect theory about another defamation lawsuit filed against Dershowitz by famous attorney David Boies. Again, the letter at length. Dershowitz's counterclaim includes the contention that Miss Roberts defamed him as part of a scheme orchestrated by Mr. Boies to extort monies from wealthy men. And this is when Dershowitz concocted the idea that all of this was about extortion. This is all about a money grab from Virginia and the girls. Has nothing to do with the fact that they were abused. And the only way that anyone is ever going to be punished as far as Epstein's concerned is financially. So you try and demean them and cast them in a bad light because they're going after what is rightfully theirs. And I think that, my friend, is bullshit. All right? This isn't a case of he said, she said, let's try and grab some coin. This is a case of hundreds, if not thousands of girls being molested by Jeffrey Epstein and his friends. And every last dollar that all of those people have should be distributed to these girls, point blank, period. While many of these are discovery subjects that should be, in the first instance, explored with Miss Roberts and Mr. Boies, Mr. Zeger did have communications with Mr. Boies and can readily confirm that, get ready for this, folks, no extortion demand was ever made, no settlement was entered into, and not a penny or other consideration was ever paid. Okay, that's a lot to unpack. So, what he's saying is, there has never ever been any extortion demand by Virginia to Les Wexner or in regards to Les Wexner. None, never happened. Again, another Dershowitz lie. So Alan Dershowitz, where's all this evidence you always talk about, Mr. I kept my tighty-whitey underpants on? You just go around and you fire bombs at people, you talk shit about people, you threaten to sue people, when in reality, your story is falling apart as fast as some generic-ass wannabe shoes that were made in China, okay? Just the opposite is true for Mr. Wexner, however. He had no involvement and thus lacks any personal knowledge relating to defendant's so-called extortion claim. Mr. Boies, who is in the midst of litigation with Dershowitz, can readily confirm Mr. Wexner's lack of involvement without burdening non-party. So, again, Dershowitz is proven to be a liar here. And it's just fact, right? He says that Wexner was extorted by Virginia. Wexner himself and his lawyer says that's not the case. Now, if Wexner was being extorted by Boies, if Wexner was being extorted by Virginia Roberts, don't you think that he would use that as a defense, folks? Don't you think he'd come out both guns blazing? But he hasn't. And that's because Mr. I kept my underpants Dershowitz is living in a fantasy land. In other words, Wexner is saying that neither he nor his family attorney have any idea what douchey Dershowitz is talking about. Another letter from Little to Dershowitz's attorney, Howard Cooper, is especially dismissive of Dershowitz's requests. At the outset, we note that your email appears to be an effort to review both the context and content of our discussions, the letter says. We assume that your client is driving this new position, but we are obviously obligated to respond directly through you. Little goes on to accuse Cooper and Dershowitz of incorrectly stating the amount of documents responsive to the subpoena, and to note that none of those documents will be released without a protective order. So Wexner's lawyer here is telling him to pound sand. Zero chance that he's getting any of those documents that he wants without a protective order in the case. And Preska has already been clear about protective orders. We have cited for you a mandatory rule. We have cited for you the case law, Little's letter goes on. In response to both, you have offered nothing, meaning Dershowitz has offered nothing. Little also accuses Dershowitz of game playing and breaching the terms of a prior agreement, and threatens to go after the Harvard law professor for attorney's fees. Well, what do you know? Mr. Dershowitz, shoe is on the other foot, sir. How does it feel to have other high-profile people chasing you down? How does it feel to no longer be the predator and to be the prey? There is another point your client should appreciate, the letter concludes. Federal Rule 45 expressly provides for a non-party's recovery of its attorney's fees where undue burden or expense has been imposed. So basically, the lawyer here is telling Douchey Dersh he better stand down or it's gonna be all guns blazing. And like I said earlier, we'll have a guerrilla war on our hands between basically the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, right? If we're talking about how scummy these two are, there's no one to root for in this fight, really. But all we can hope for is maximum damage to both sides. Let them rip themselves apart in the courtroom. Let them destroy themselves. Let them waste money. Because at the end of the day, all of it is for show. Because what's really coming down the pipe and what's really going to have both of these men shook is when the RICO indictments begin. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody. I'll be back later on tonight, and you can find the links for this episode inside of the description box. Until then, folks.
My internet came with so many hidden monthly fees, I developed allergies. So now, if I'm streaming, I'm sniffling. Or scrolling, I'm sneezing.
Don't get fees. Get Frontier and get no hidden monthly fees on our super fast 500 meg internet for just $59.99 a month plus taxes and government charges.
At first I thought it was pollen. Turns out, I'm just allergic to wasting money.
Frontier. Don't go it alone. Go to Frontier.com for complete offer details. Services subject to availability and all applicable terms and conditions.